There used to be an excellent pilot on the river, a Mr. X, who was a somnambulist. It was said that if his mind was troubled about a bad piece of river, he was pretty sure to get up and walk in his sleep and do strange things. He was once fellow pilot for a trip or two with George Ealer on the Great New Orleans passenger packet. During a considerable part of the first trip, George was uneasy, but got over it by and by, as X seemed to be content to stay in his bed when asleep. Late one night, the boat was approaching Helena, Arkansas. The water was low, and the crossing above the town in a very blind and tangled condition. X had seen the crossing since Ealer had, and as the night was particularly drizzly, sullen, and dark, Ealer was considering whether he had better not have X called to assist in running the place, when the door opened and X walked in. Now, on very dark nights, light is a deadly enemy to piloting. You are aware that if you stand in a lighted room on such a night, you cannot see things in the street to any purpose. But if you put out the lights and stand in the gloom, you can make out objects in the street pretty well. So on very dark nights, pilots do not smoke. They allow no fire in the pilot house stove. If there is a crack which can allow at least a ray to escape, they order the furnaces to be curtained, with huge tarpaulins, and the skylights to be closely blinded. Then no light whatever issues from the boat. The indefinable shape that now entered the pilot house had Mr. X's voice. This said, "Let me take her, George. I've seen this place since you have, and it's so crooked that I reckon I can run it myself easier than I can tell you how to do it. It is kind of you, and I swear I am willing. I haven't got another drop of perspiration left in me. I've been spinning around and around the wheel like a squirrel. It's so dark I can't tell which way she's swinging till I come in like a whirligig." So Ealer took a seat on the bench, panting and breathless. The Black Phantom assumed the wheel without saying anything, steadied the waltzing steamer with a tune or two, and then stood at ease, coaxing her a little to this side and then to that, as gently and as sweetly as if the time had been noonday. When Ealer observed this marvel of steering, he wished he had not confessed. He stared and wondered, and finally said, "Well, I thought I knew how to steer a steamboat, but that was another mistake of mine." X said nothing, but went serenely on with his work. He rang for the leads. He rang to slow down the steam. He worked the boat carefully and neatly into invisible marks that stood at the center of the wheel, and peered blandly out into the darkness fore and aft to verify his position. As the leads shoaled more and more, he stopped the engines entirely, and the dead silence and suspensive drifting followed. When the shoalest water was struck, he cracked on the steam, carried her handsomely over, and then began to work her warily into the next system of shoal marks. The same patient, heedful use of leads and engines followed. The boat slipped through without touching bottom, and entered upon the third and last intricacy of the crossing. Imperceptibly she moved through the gloom, crept by inches into her marks, drifted tediously till the shoalest water was cried, and then on a tremendous head of steam went swinging over the reef away into deep water and safety. Ealer let out long pent breath pour out of his great relieving sigh, and said, "That's the sweetest piece of piloting that was ever done on the Mississippi River. I wouldn't believed it could been done if I hadn't seen it." There was no reply, and he added, "Just hold her 5 minutes longer, partner. Let me run down and get a cup of coffee." A minute later, Ealer was biting into a pie down in the Texas and comforting himself with coffee. Just then the night watchman happened in, and was about to happen out again when he noticed Ealer and exclaimed, "Who is at the wheel, sir?" "X." "Dart for the pilot house quicker than lightning." The next moment both men were flying up the pilot house companionway, 3 steps at a jump. Nobody there. The great steamer was whistling down the middle of the river at her own sweet will. The watchman shot out of the place again. Ealer seized the wheel, set an engine back with power, and held his breath while the boat reluctantly swung away from a towhead, which was about to knock into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. By and by, the watchman came back and said, "Didn't that lunatic tell you he was asleep when he first came up here?" "No." "Well, he was. I found him walking along top of the railings just as unconcerned as another man would walk a pavement, and I put him to bed. Now just this minute there he was again, way astern, going through that sort of tightrope deviltry, the same as before. Well, I think I'll stay by next time he has one of those fits, but I hope he'll have them often. You just ought to have seen him take this boat through Helena Crossing. I never saw anything so gaudy before. And if he could do so gold leaf, kid glove, diamond breastpin piloting when he was sound asleep, what couldn't he do if he was dead?"